ladies and gentlemen. Uh, would I have 15 minutes or slightly less than that?
15 plus.
15 plus, okay.
Allowed. We need to reserve something for interaction.
Yeah.
Ask more questions.
Okay. So in fact, I'm going to get slightly away from technology. Very good presentations that were made in the previous sessions. And I'm going to focus a little bit on, what was highlighted today morning by some of our esteemed guest speakers, especially Mr. Soni and Mr. Datta. Ultimately, oil and gas as a sector is undergoing, turbulent times. And there basically is a lot of focus on creating competitive advantage, through improvements in the way we operate our assets. Basically, all of us agree that, we have 4 pillars that runs any business. So you've got people, you've got technology, you've got systems and processes, and then you've got the inherent capabilities and competencies that lie within the organization that ultimately lead to a sustainable competitive advantage in the marketplace. Now, what does this all lead to? I mean, and who's basically going to ensure that we achieve this competitive advantage in the future? So all this basically leads to corporates increasingly focusing on operational excellence through operating discipline. So it's all about people. It's all about how do we as employees and we as people manage our assets properly and in a more disciplined way. DuPont basically defines operations excellence. DuPont primarily operates some of the most hazardous operations globally. We operate about 200 plus plants, and we've had the minimum number of serious incidents over the past 50 years. Because we always believe that, whilst technology, process, and systems are important, the application of principles, systems, and tools to engage and focus everyone's efforts is extremely important. And we need to be on a continuous improvement mode as we sort of continue to operate our assets. So, Mr. Datta actually mentioned about, the increased focus on reliability, increased focus on maintenance, but he was very clear of one thing, people will make it happen. So we will make it happen. So ultimately, we as people have to run our assets safely, reliably, profitably, and cost effectively, because that's what is going to ensure our survival and our corporate survival in the future. Primarily, what the previous presentation said was more focused about how do we protect our assets. So it's more about value protection. Yeah? So it's more about operational predictability and how do you basically sort of use new techniques and new technology to protect your assets and to basically extract the maximum value out of your assets. But is the time right now for us to start thinking about how do we make the best of the value protection and the value extraction techniques to create value for ourselves and for our shareholders in the future? Because, in my opinion, running a business safely and reliably is good business. I mean, have we actually thought about linking maintenance and reliability to good business value? Yes, we have, because that's what our leaders do all the time. But we need to do it in a very focused and in a very disciplined manner. The first step is to prevent value destruction. So we've heard about many accidents that have happened in the recent past. And in fact, I was with a very renowned private organization yesterday in India, wherein an incident took place, at one of the installations. And not a lot of money, but it's probably going to run into thousands of dollars. Yeah? So managing risk in operations in an integrated system, is the need of the day right now. So you've got a stakeholder, you've got a public, you've got an environment, and you've got the business. And today, as a business, we might be more tolerant of, any incidents that take place in our own organization, but the public, sorry, they're not, because they're not concerned. If 7 people die in an incident, you are going to get locked down. And that's a lot of destruction of value. Yeah? So we need to recognize this fact very clearly and very loudly. DuPont basically has evolved over the years, and we are still evolving. So I'm not saying we are perfect, but the way we manage our safety and our risk is by adopting these 13 or 14 elements that have been highlighted on the slide. And I'm not going to read each and every one of them, but there are four foundation elements. The first and foremost is management, leadership, and commitment, and that's exactly what Mr. Datta was trying to highlight and focus on when he was giving his address in the morning. If management, commitment, and leadership, visible leadership is lacking, we as people, and that's applicable to people all over the world, tend to mirror our leaders. So if the leaders are not really serious about managing their assets safely and profitably, then what message does it actually sort of cascade down the line? We have always focused on building a safety culture. And midstream sector or upstream sector or downstream sector is no different from the steel sector, and steel sector is no different from the cement sector. Yeah? So this is universal. Yeah? Management, leadership, and commitment, and building a safety culture is extremely important to implement an operational risk management program. Because without that, you can't even think about sort of getting this down the line. And the most important element that basically orchestrates all this is operational discipline. And who basically ensures that OD is managed well in any organization is the people. It's us, along with the capabilities and the competencies and the intrinsic motivation that all of us carry to do things right every time we try and operate an asset. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, in our experience, people basically tend to be in a state of denial, because people tend to think that it always happens to the other company. It's never going to happen to our company. And then I read a line in one of the slides in the previous presentations that safety is not a matrix. It's not measured. It's measured. BP, $32 billion down the drain. ExxonMobil, Shell. Just imagine when it happens, it's billions, not millions, but billions of dollars that are reflected on your balance sheet. And forget about the amount of value that is wiped off your market cap. That's a different thing altogether. So the message is loud and clear. Take operational discipline very, very seriously. And I'm sure that there are some leaders sitting in this room. There has to be a leadership commitment that comes from the top. What is OD? It's very simple, right? I mean, it's the organizational perspective and it's the individual perspective. So everyone does it right every time. Is it practical? No. I mean, I know it's not practical. But that's the culture that we have to try and set in. Yeah? And that is what is going to lead to a sustained operational excellence and give our organizations the competitive advantage that is going to be required to manage a bottom line. Yeah? So in DuPont, basically, I'm committed to working safely and efficiently by doing my tasks or doing my tasks the right way every time. I try and do it very consciously. And that conscious effort actually comes by way of culture, and that actually comes by way of me developing that intrinsic motivation to manage my assets properly. Second step is to maximize value extraction and value creation. And again, in our experience, we know and we have deduced that people drive operational excellence. Yeah? Strong leadership. You have to be structured for success. You have to be internally structured to drive operational excellence in the most effective way, which means that performance management, integrated team structures, um, roles and responsibilities, clear roles and responsibilities have to be very, very well defined. And let's accept the fact that we as human beings, we were not designed to multitask. Yeah? We are designed to single task. We convince ourselves that we can multitask, but eventually, if you are focused on a single task and action, you do it very well. If you are trying to do 10 different things, at a given point of time, you are basically going to create a lack of focus on the activity that was deemed important. And that obviously is going to lead to certain consequences. So the best system in the world, poorly executed, is worthless. You've got 100% outstanding pipeline integrity standards. We know how to basically manage pipeline integrity. But if your operating discipline is just 40% or 30%, then the implementation effectiveness is going to be less than 25%. So you're having the best processes in the world, you're having the best system in the world, you're having the best technology in the world. But at the end of the day, there's no discipline in basically implementing these. So the output is not basically the best value for your money. So operational excellence, in our opinion, is also achieved through an integrated business excellence system. And the way we advise companies to do it, or we do it ourselves, is, along these four sort of boxes. So we've got managing process, we've got a technical model, we've got a capabilities engine, and we've got a mindsets and behaviors. And people might say that mindsets and behaviors, hey, what is it? Come on, Nikhil, be practical. But that's exactly what Mr. Datta was saying today morning as well. The why bit. Why should I do it? What's in it for me? We need to be convinced first, right? That, okay, if I do this right, this is what's in store for me. So that mindset and behavior ultimately is one thing that DuPont very actively focuses on, every manager or every employee. And we need to engage with our employees. We need to have dialogues every single day. Employees have problems, but they won't come to us and discuss the problems with us. But we as managers, we as leaders, need to reach out to our employees and ensure that we role model and we engage in difficult conversations. That's going to help him understand the business value of doing things right. Yeah? Technical models, yes, we have the right tools, we have the right practices to solve the root level problems. But at the end of the day, we need to create an integrated system that fully utilizes the people and the organizational capability as a whole to deliver the results that the management or the leaders have embarked on and have counted upon us to achieve. So true operational improvement and transformation only happens, and I've observed this, the recent incident, and I had a discussion with a leading gas midstream company in India. And I actually discussed this particular slide with them, and the chairman agreed. He agreed completely. Because true operational improvement and transformation only happens when employees basically see the leaders behaving differently, see other people behaving differently. Yeah? Otherwise, what's the incentive for them to change their mindset and behavior? Nothing. Practically nothing. Yeah? So basically, they have their own line of thought, and they will change their mindsets and behaviors only if, they see these 3 or 4 things, especially on role modeling and understanding and commitment, that, they will actually want to change themselves. We need to develop some critical mindset changes. It's extremely important, especially in a changing scenario. Oil and gas as a sector is looking so different to what it looked 5 years back. In fact, what it looked 1 year back. I would say 1 year back. Things have changed dramatically over the past 1 year. And as I speak today, we are talking about the BPs and the Shells and the Exxons and the Schlums and the Baker Hughes of the world slashing close to 100,000 jobs. Why is that? Because they do not see people basically creating the kind of operating discipline for the kind of money that the company is willing to invest in them. Yeah? And now the need is greater for these companies to to ensure that they don't lose out. Because when people move out, the organization is at an increasingly high risk of having some catastrophic incidents. So, I personally believe in LSW, which is Leader Standard Work in Operations. And it's actually the process of driving the correct behavior and shifting the focus of leaders to teaching, coaching, and problem solving. Leaders are not managers. I mean, again, some of us are leaders in this room. We used to be managers, but now we are leaders. So we are not supposed to micromanage. We have managers who do it for us. You are basically supposed, to focus on creating a discipline in the organization by way of thought leadership, problem solving, coaching, and ensuring that people stay on track. That is extremely important. Yeah? And typically, I think, being engineers, I assume most of us are engineers in this room, we love technology, and we love basically getting into the god of small things. So DuPont has very consciously sort of trained and focused on ensuring that leaders basically do what leaders are supposed to do and not what managers are supposed to do. So leader standard work actually requires changes to both systems and mindsets. So leaders must ensure that they use personal visual management to track progress of time spent on each employee, calendar time to review visual management boards in a particular area, and obviously really focus on mindsets and behaviors. And we feel, when I met up with this very prominent organization, we felt that had leadership been very effective on that particular site when that incident happened, and had leadership been more proactive in terms of reporting out and basically crafting time in the calendars to see what's going wrong and to guide the people, probably the incident may not have happened. So, operational excellence is one of the most important issues for CEOs globally. We participated in a global event recently, and we did some research. We interviewed some top leaders globally, and operational excellence actually has come as number 2, and human capital has come as number 1. And operational excellence, operating discipline, and human capital cannot really be sort of segregated, or they cannot be seen as being independent to each other. Yeah. And again, operating discipline is not getting in new technology every time and getting new people every time. It's actually managing your processes and change innovatively. You do things differently. Get an innovation in the way you manage your operating discipline. So the top 3, as you can see, are interlinked, which again stresses the importance of us as leaders to start thinking about these 3 parameters. So the leadership comments that we got were, OD releases time, energy, and resources. OD is an essential ingredient to moving up the curve to operational excellence, which is what all the midstream and downstream and upstream oil and gas companies will need to do even more of. A good OD culture, again, Mr. Soni and Mr. Datta and Mr. Das focused upon PSM, but then PSM is an outcome of the culture, that employees exhibit. And it's all about leadership. I can tell you more than 93% of the leaders were convinced that it's all about leadership. Leadership sets the tone. If the culture isn't what you want, you have to change it. And that's precisely the message that I want to leave this dais with to all of you as leaders. Be the change you want and lead by example as you go back and join your organizations. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikhil, for a